welcome to River Talk. Today's discussion is going to be based around what's going on in Syria as well as North Korea. But first I'd like to introduce everyone. Mr. Barley isn't here today, so Ashwin is working camera. We have Nicholas here, I'll be your moderator, Zach. We got Colin and Trey. And so first we're going to be starting off with what was going on in Syria. So I believe it was last Friday, the United States Navy launched 59 Tomahawk missiles at an air base in Syria. So first of all, just quick thoughts here. What do you think the overall long-term implications of this attack is going to bear fruit? What's the result going to look like?
Well, initially I thought it was going to be a death knell for Trump because I figured we'd be going down the neoconservative path that George Bush and them had led the country down in the Middle East. And, I figured, we'd have another war on our hands. But thankfully now it seems that that's not the case, and it was just one strike to show that America is not to be trifled with, and when we say we're going to do something and we stand by something, we mean it. And we're not, our policies are not just words. I think it was actions to show that we are serious when we make statements and policy positions and things like that.
How about you, Nick?
Well, I was going to say, as much as I hate getting involved in the Middle East, I think it was a great idea. I mean, from one of Barlane's classes, he was saying that back when Obama was still president, he made the same threat. And this is not the first time they've used chemical weapons, but Obama didn't do a strike. And it just so happened that Trump lived up to what the United States was supposed to do. Now,
there's this whole argument about the constitutionality of what he did. So back in 2013, when Assad did another chemical attack, Obama didn't want to intervene directly in Syria, but the problem was, he wanted to go to Congress, get their approval first, because we're putting troops on the ground or via missiles, bombings. It's a sovereign nation. We got to have a discussion about it, reasonable discussion about it. So
Of course.
So he went to Congress. I think it's quite interesting that Republicans voted heavily against it, and then now they're all of a sudden all for it.
Unless you're Rand Paul.
Well, Rand Paul, every now and then he seems to be the reasonable voice, because he's always been a strict constitutionalist. Ron Paul, that's his father. He kind of grew up believing the same things his father did, right? I just want to take your that on how Republicans didn't like it then, but now it's cool now.
That's politics. I don't think it can get any simpler. It's because there's a Republican in the White House.
The Constitution.
Politics. That trumps everything in D.C. Get it? Trump.
Well, that was also before the Civil War was raging for 6 years, too. I mean, you've got to put that into perspective. I mean, on the other hand, Obama went back on his word, but honestly, I mean, I can understand why he didn't, because, look at Iraq and Afghanistan. We got involved there, and well, I'm not going to say nothing, but pretty much nothing came out, but making it worse. So, 6 years is a long time for a civil war, for a country to, especially last year with all of this Syrian refugee business. I think it was about time that something happened, and whether or not that Congress approved it or not, or whether or not it's Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. They went against, I'm not sure what the name of the treaty was, but it was not to use chemical weapons. Wasn't that after World War I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to use chemical weapons, and he didn't. It doesn't matter that he's doing it on his own people. They're still fighting.
Yeah.
So and unfortunately, with the size of the United States, and I know that's not the way Trump wants to be, but we are the world police, and something needs to be done about it. And if Russia and Iran don't like it, then
here's what I don't really understand about the situation. So it's 59 Tomahawk missiles, right? 23. These are satellite guided. This is high tech stuff right here. So 23 actually hit the airbase, and there was no serious damage done to the runway. The day after they bombed it, Syrians were going right back to using the airway or the airbase. I thought that I'm not sure if that was intentional or.
I'm not understanding that quite either, because a Tomahawk missile is the size of a small commercial airplane.
Well, not commercial. Well, it's the size of a Cessna.
Well, yeah, but still, tiny thing.
I just find it interesting, you know, like, we have,
Part of me thinks that he must have just hit the same building over and over and over again because.
and I think I read somewhere they destroyed like 7 aircraft that were like not even useful to them anymore, like they're already like under repairs or already damaged, that they weren't even useful anymore. I just,
Mhm.
like, they hit stuff that was irrelevant.
But maybe that was the point.
Yeah,
Maybe
part of me thinks it was just a show of force and not just
Yes.
we're taking a side, suck it, Russia. I don't think that was the intention. I think it was just say, hey, knock it off. I think that was.
I think the only real basis for any kind of argument with that would be if we were to do another strike or something, more military action, and whether or not what that does. Because that is just, you know, obviously it was a fly by the seat kind of, not necessarily, but pretty much. I mean, Tuesday and when was it, Thursday they did the attack?
Mhm.
Thursday
48
night.
hours later. And that, might seem like a long time to us, but that's not a long time in terms of the president and going through the chain of command and getting all this stuff done.
Mhm.
So, although we really don't know, because we're probably not privy to that kind of classified information. They could have just been too trigger happy and just fired somewhere over there. Or two, that could have been the plan all along. And if they do it again, then they might destroy the whole base. We don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen again, but you never know.
Yeah.
I just want to throw out a couple more things. I thought this was interesting. In 2013, yeah, the UN intervened saying, okay, Assad, we're going to take your chemical weapons away. The chemical weapons were rebased in Russia, which I thought was very interesting. And then all of a sudden he goes and uses chemical weapons again, and I just find that to be, you know.
Well, we all know, I mean, it's Russia and Iran. I mean, just, you guys are in Barley's current events class, aren't you?
Well, I was.
I took it before, yeah.
Well, last week he was talking about the difference between Shia and Sunni Muslims, and the fact that the same Muslims that are part of Assad's regime are the ones that control Iran. And between that and the naval base that Russia has there, you have Iran, half of Syria, and Russia going against the other half of Syria. So whether or not that, okay, Syria gets rid of the chemical weapons, you're not tailing anything to Russia, even though we blatantly know that that's the case. But something needs to happen with Russia, and that's the thing, is they don't want to do that.
Because, well, with the history with the whole like policy of regime change, like him or hate him, Assad is keeping check on terrorism in the region, when you look at it. And the same thing was done in Iraq, as well as Libya. You know, awful dictators, but they kept terrorism in check. Sometimes, some
Well,
of
Gaddafi
them.
funded it.
Well, there's no need for terrorism when he's just killing all his own people anyway.
But the whole thing, there were a lot of these countries, they had a secular government that, you know, tried to respect each religion, you know, equally in a sense. And so they're trying to protect, I guess, the different religious sects in their, you know, countries because, well, you know, Muslims, extreme Muslims anyway, like to kill anyone that doesn't agree with them.
I mean, it's kind of hard.
So what should be done then? If Assad needs to go, what should be done to fix his mistakes and to fix Syria as a whole?
See, I don't think Assad is really our problem. I'm pretty isolationist. Well, okay, non-interventionist when it comes to foreign policy. Like I think ISIS is the true threat to us and our allies. I think that should be the main threat, and Assad is just kind of a footnote. I mean, if he uses chemical weapons, you know, maybe blow some stuff up, tell him to knock it off. But honestly, what he does is completely irrelevant to us. I know it's kind of a bleak, dark way to look at it, but Assad's not trying to kill us actively.
But not completely though, because we still have to deal with these refugees, and Europe has to deal with these refugees.
Well, we don't have to deal with them. We're like a whole ocean away. That's Turkey's problem. They're close, or Saudi Arabia, or all these other majority Muslim countries that can easily house them. Why do we have to? Our culture is completely different.
Because we're trying to solve things in the Middle East, which is not going to happen.
Well, we
But-
shouldn't try to do that.
Well, then you try to get Congress to pull completely out of the Middle East.
And welcome back. We just took a short break there. before we left though, we were discussing the situation in Syria, the Middle East, and Nicholas, I think you had a thought you wanted to finish that.
Yeah, I was saying that you were talking about, yeah, we have no business meddling with the Middle East, okay, or Middle East. Well, yeah, that too, that's a valid point. But Syria is what the point we're discussing. The fact of the matter is that, okay, we don't mess with Syria, but we're still messing with everybody else. And if on God's green earth, we, by some chance, we clean up the rest of the Middle East and do nothing about Syria, it's just gonna start all over again because we've done nothing with them. So, I mean, it's all or nothing.
And, you know, there isn't really, from what I've read a lot of on different sites, news articles, networks, they all seem to, they're not 100% confident that Assad pulled this off just because of the fact that he is currently winning the civil war right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems strange that, okay, hey, I'm winning a civil war, I guess I'll make my people hate me more by, you know, chemically bombing them. But, I don't know, it's just,
kids and civilians,
Yeah.
not even the rebels that he's fighting.
like he's literally
women
killing
and children.
his own citizens, like,
He
it just
wants-
just doesn't make sense though.
The attention of who? Of the United States? Of Russia? We don't know. But
But
obviously,
why
it's
though?
attention.
Because that
But
just
I-
gives
I
us
fail to
more
see
reason
though.
to remove him from power.
Yeah.
I just find that to be really weird.
What's his end game?
Or is he trying to plot the United States up against Russia? Because that's kind of what's happening right now. You mean, but didn't Rex Tillerson go to Moscow yesterday?
Today, yeah.
Didn't whoever speaks for Russia, didn't they say
Sergei Lavrov?
not to do it again? A final warning?
Yeah, the prime minister, you know, I have this thing about Russia. I feel like they like to talk a big game, but I feel like we would wipe them out in a
Oh,
actual
absolutely. They're nothing but a bunch of farmers and sore losers over the Cold War. We kicked them before, we'll get them again.
And the whole
Is that another war you want to get into?
Not really, no.
No, I'm just saying, you know,
like.
like, I feel like the threats, though, that they throw towards us are just, you know, a bunch of hot air. I feel like, you know, sure, they want Syria in power, or Assad in power,
So they can
because,
keep
you know,
their
they got a
precious
naval
naval base.
base there, they got, you know, they got interest there, and, you know, I just feel like going against the United States, just to keep him in power, is just, in the long term, isn't in their favor at all. Because if they go to war with us, they're also going to war with the rest of Western Europe, too, because of NATO.
And they'll have to do with.
And you know Western Europe has some bones to pick with Russia, I'm sure.
Especially the Polish.
Especially the Polish.
Maybe it's about time.
Them and their sausages.
So I just feel like while they may make these threats, I just feel like they wouldn't actually act upon them. Because we still
But
have,
what's the point between an empty threat and one that actually has some power behind it? I mean, we don't know.
the worst they can do is send nukes, and I feel like even Putin isn't dumb.
I don't feel like he's that deranged.
You know, he may be former KGB, but I doubt he's, you know,
Yeah.
I'll restore the Soviet Union by nuking it.
Russia will take all of Europe, even if it must stand on a pile of ashes.
And then also another interesting interesting event that's happening in our foreign policy is North Korea. So
Exciting.
recently, the U.S. has sent a strike force there. Japan, I believe either yesterday or today,
Mhm.
sent a supporting force to help us. And
China has 150,000 troops on the North Korean border, and Ukraine sent 2 of its 5 ships to join the U.S. strike
Help
force.
me out here. What's the intent by all these allied forces?
So-
is there a
Sure,
purpose
force.
that they're there?
It's
To deter further nuclear
so
tests.
you know how Kim Jong he likes to throw around that, hey, you know, we have missiles, we might have a nuke.
They have bottle rockets.
We
Why don't
like-
we threaten to nuke them then?
I feel like that would do the whole.
Well, then the fallout will hit China, and Jinping and the boys will be like, please no, and then they'll nuke us, and then we'll have to nuke them back.
Then we got to nuke Russia because they had it too good.
Mhm.
Just nuke everybody.
And now-
Well, because is mutually assured destruction still there?
Yes.
So there you go. If someone attacks someone else,
It'll be
the rest of the
another-
world's just gonna go.
And Russia's got 15,000 nukes, we've got 10,000, God knows how many China's got, France has got them, Britain's got them, there'll be nukes everywhere, there'll be nothing left.
And you know, just think about the
I mean,
situation
no
if North Korea actually does act upon something. Because you know, the last thing China wants is a united Korean peninsula. That's the last thing they want. So they got, you know, 150,000 troops, like you said, on the border. So I mean, if Allied forces were, I feel like, attempt to remove them, I feel like they're just going to flood the country and just
Just like
replace
they did 6
Kim
years
Jong.
ago.
Yeah, they're just going to replace the government and just say, okay, it's all good now.
So good. Good.
I just,
If you ask me, whoever controls North Korea is, well, it's really none of our business. They just can't be, lobbing missiles and such everywhere, because that's a direct
Awful
threat.
big crosshairs on the forehead.
I just don't,
How is he gonna nuke the United States when we
Well,
can't
it's-
get a
he
missile
can't
to
even
reach
see
Japan?
something over.
we also have
I'm
a
not worried
complex
about him
missile
hitting-
defense system, like, I don't. I
I'm
just
not
don't-
worried. I'm not worried about Kim Jong stupid hitting us. I'm worried. I'm
It's
worried.
like one of those air missiles where you just hit it with your foot and psh.
I'm worried about him hitting.
Seriously.
The only problem is he could hit South Korea. He could hit Japan. He could hit Taiwan.
Vital allies
Mm-hmm.
against China.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's. I mean, I'm not worried about us. We're a far ways away, and Donald will probably slap down any missile they try and throw at us.
The
But
Don.
South Korea, Japan, they could use some backup. They're awful close, and they don't have our orange lion that we have.
The Orange Line.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what a time to be alive. It's a spooky world we're in.
Interesting times.
Were Ukraine sends their battleships to Korea?
No, I was a little puzzled
Yeah, what
when you
the
said
hell?
that. Like,
I was surprised when I read it, but
is Ukraine okay on this thing?
they were Crimea
We
back.
live in a time where
If they can't take
anything-
Crimea, they'll take Pyongyang.
Anything and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Sean Spicer.
Yeah.
Our beloved press secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Your beloved, not mine. Beloved.
I voted for Trump.
No, I
didn't
mean,
vote
I'm
for
not
Spicer.
here to make, I'm not here to make fun of anyone in this situation.
Except
other
for
than
Sean
point out,
Spicer.
Except
other
for
than
Sean
point out,
Spicer.
Sean Spicer here. So, was it today or yesterday that he had the press conference?
It was yesterday.
Was it yesterday? Okay, so, for those of you watching, Sean Spicer, he was discussing, trying to justify our intervention in Syria with hitting the airbase because, according to him, at first he said that
It's worse than.
Hitler didn't use chemical weapons, and by what he meant, I believe he either meant,
In combat.
using in combat or dropping them on, large population centers, chemical weapons of some sort. But it seems as though, they still use chemical weapons to kill, Jewish, German
Yeah, they just put them in
civilians.
buildings instead of out on the battlefield.
Yeah, but he called concentration camps Holocaust centers. I mean,
Ugh.
It's just,
See, this is why you just shouldn't bring up Hitler at all. I mean,
it's just willful ignorance at this point.
I mean, the
Knowingly
left.
saying.
I think they just need a new press secretary because
I think the
Call up
it's
position-
Milo.
making it worse.
Yeah,
We need to
right.
call up Milo Yiannopoulos. He'd be fantastic at this.
really. But I don't know. I just thought that was.
Yeah.
Not a bright moment for Sean Spicer, but I don't see that as stumping the Trump and ultimately.
You ever feel like he gets up there and just wish he was still the Easter Bunny for the White House? So if you were to get, fired for whatever reason, who do you think actually should take his place?
Milo Yiannopoulos.
Anyone else?
Like us? Anyone else? Okay, that's a viable option.
Milo
There's 7 billion other people who see
Jeb.
Jeb Bush.
He needs a job. But he might be too low energy for Donald,
Too low
so.
energy.
Marco Rubio?
Well, he's gonna be sitting there with the other
He's kind of a neocon.
other networks. He's gonna be like,
The
"Please
hands.
stop."
Maybe he'll
Small
hire
game.
back Steve Bannon and give him another shot.
Steve Bannon never got fired though. He's still on Trump's staff.
Yes, you're right.
No, he's not on the National Security
Oh,
Council, but he's still.
whatever.
senior
But he still
advisor.
has.
He's still
you can
probably-
still see Trump.
And he still goes to the meetings.
So I do believe that's going to wrap us up for
Yeah,
today.
Bannon.
Yeah, yeah. We appreciate you watching. We hope you have a nice day.
Bye.